Hello everybody and welcome back to another Royal Reviewer transmission, and today we have a whole slew of royal stories to talk about. By the way, I am suffering a little bit with hay fever and I forgot to take a tablet today, so if I do sound a little bit sniffly, you know why. Right, let's just jump straight into it. So the first story that struck me today, and it's one that do I believe, do I not believe? Let's just talk about it and then we'll get to the bottom of it, hopefully. Well, no, actually, I don't think we will get to the bottom of it. But Harry and Meghan are to stop bashing the royal family and writing books, making documentaries, and sitting down for interviews, claim insiders. Now, I will say at the outset of this story that the insider apparently spoke to the Sun tabloid newspaper here in the UK. So as we know, in terms of where this potentially could come from, could it come from the Sussexes themselves, from their camp? Even though the Sussexes said a couple of years ago now, probably more, maybe 3 years ago now, I forget the time spans, that they weren't going to communicate or talk to any of the British tabloid media, and they gave a whole list of publications that they would not be communicating with. So if it did come from them or any of their team, then obviously they're going against their own sort of policy, if you like, with regards to talking to red top tabloid newspapers here in the United Kingdom. However, it is still possible. I mean, as we know, leaks happen from all members of the royal family, whether you're a working royal at the palace or whether you are sort of estranged from the family, so to speak. Um, so that is one distinct possibility that we cannot discount. Also, we cannot discount that it has come from the royal family, Buckingham Palace side of things, or a royal courtier, a well-placed royal source, who may have some inside information from what's been going on behind the scenes that we, mere mortals, are not party or partial to. So as we know, Harry and Meghan have spoken out against the royal family in many things that they have done since stepping back, including a Netflix documentary series, the Oprah interview, certain things that were said on Meghan's podcast, Archetypes, and of course the big whopper, which is of course the book, Harry's memoir, Spare. So would yeah, I'm not entirely sure what this is. I mean, it says now the couple plan to take on roles further away from the glare of the public eye. So if you're taking on roles further away from the glare of the public eye, what does that actually mean? To me, that means, working privately, having businesses, but then again, anything that they have to sell needs to be sort of public. It needs to be out there. It needs to be promoted. So what I'm getting from it is perhaps they won't do the talking about the royal family part, which is what I've been saying that they should have been doing right from day one. They should have just left, drawn a line in the sand, and got on with it. But they didn't. And there's another sort of quote that came from this source that stood out that said, that period of their life is over, talking about the documentaries and the book writing, that sort of thing, as there is nothing left to say. Now, we know that there is still things to say because Harry pointed out that he cut half of the memoir, so there were about 400 spare pages of spare. Do you see what I did there? Clever, I know. You are allowed to black fan flap me for that joke. But there are 400 pages left, apparently, that could potentially be turned into another installment of the memoir. Plus, we think that Harry and Meghan had a book deal that perhaps included 3 or 4 books. So to maybe there will be books, but it might not be sort of revealing about the royal family, because they're going to have to meet their obligations, if indeed those are the obligations that they signed up to. But I think what it also means is pertaining to is that they'll be doing lots of production work, maybe with Netflix behind the scenes, that sort of thing. So do I believe this? I mean, it depends, I suppose, where it came from. Or another option is that it's entirely made up by the press right from its conception. I don't know. I think they do have more to sell. I think there is more to say. I mean, they have definitely dropped hints that there is sort of more story to tell. But without the other side, Buckingham Palace side, the King and the Queen, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, and any other royals sort of feeding them. And what the royal family has done, they played a blinder in the fact that they haven't retaliated in terms of making any formal statements about it or anything of that nature. They've remained tightly lipped. Their lips have been zipped. And I think that's done them good because it's almost cut off the fire. It's cut off the oxygen from the fire because they are not fueling it. Of course, what Harry and Meghan have ended up doing by talking about all these things and revealing them, they've ended up tying themselves in knots and exposing themselves to more criticism, and more questions have been raised that have been pulled up, of course, by the media, and not just the media, the wider public. I mean, we now live in a social media age where it's not just the newspapers or journalists that can pick apart details of what people say. Everybody can, and you see it all over Twitter, social media. Whatever Harry and Meghan say, people can do their own research and they can pick and they can pull things up. So Harry and Meghan, in my opinion, have not done themselves any favors in speaking out. It may have made them feel a little bit better, um, but it hasn't done them any favors in the public eye. It's raised more questions than just remaining tightly lipped and just getting on with it, which they could have done from day dot of leaving. Instead, they sort of waged this sort of high profile project war bashing Harry's family. And of course, Meghan's fallen out with half of her family on the Markle side. Well, pretty much all of the Markles, I think. So it's not done them any favours. I do think they do have more to sell, which sort of leads me to think, have they finally woken up? Is this the bit? Have they woken up to the fact that it's not doing them any favours to speak out? Have they now finally drawn a line in the sand? If this has come from, well, I suppose from either side, whether it's come from Buckingham Palace or come from Harry and Meghan's camp directly, it kind of says that perhaps there is this kind of truce behind the scenes, maybe. That's if this is true, because if Harry and Meghan have now conceded that they are not going to speak out against the royal family, that might actually be paving a way for some kind of reconciliation. But crucially, trust is gone. I mean, trust is gone on both sides. For Harry and Meghan against the rest of the royal family, for the royal family against Harry and Meghan, trust is gone. So when you are drawing a line in the sand, you then got to accept that trust needs to be rebuilt from ground zero. And perhaps that is what is going on behind the scenes. At the moment, like I say, we're just having these little snippets coming out. And I'm not entirely sure, again, like I've said from the very beginning of this story, what to make of it. Is it true? Is it not true? What we have learned, of course, over the time that Harry and Meghan have been detached from the royal family and speaking out, is that a lot of things that the press have said in the past had some basis in truth, which leads me to believe that does this story have some basis in the truth, which is why I'm talking about it today. I wouldn't talk about it if I didn't think that it had some basis in truth. It's one of those stories to watch, and it's one of those that I think will be very telling in due course. So the way that we're going to find out more about it is if anything else is further leaked, or put out there in the press about sort of Harry and Meghan's future projects. We know that Meghan is trying to put herself out there as to kind of get work. She's signed with an agency now. Perhaps the agency has even advised Harry and Meghan that, hey, to get more work, perhaps you need to drop the animosity, perhaps you need to drop the attacks. Because it's not selling very well. Well, no, it is selling in terms of Spare was very successful. It sold lots because of the curiosity surrounding the royal family. That actually goes to prove that the royal family is still very much of interest and relevance worldwide, globally. because if people weren't interested in what Harry had got to say about the royal family, they wouldn't have bought the book. So in terms of sales, anything that Harry does about the royal family or Meghan is going to be successful commercially because of the level of interest in the British royal family. It goes without saying, and Spare proved that. But I do think that in terms of winning people over, the agency may have advised and said, look, you need to put a stop to this and you need to move on and try and get work with other projects. So maybe this is part of the whole Meghan 2.0, although Meghan 2.0 seems very much like Meghan Ground Zero to me. But yeah, I do think they do have more to gain commercially from speaking out against the royal family. But in terms of winning people over and the longevity of it, and I think this is what perhaps the agency might have been sort of suggesting to get longevity in your career, that is not where it's at. It may provide, short-term monetary gain, but you can't keep on doing it forever. So I just thought that was a very interesting story. It's definitely one to watch, and I will be looking out for things pertaining to this going on. So do let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Right, my next story is about Sarah Ferguson, or Fergs, as she likes to be called, because she has finally, after a short delay, released her podcast. Now, I confess, I haven't at this point in time had a chance to actually read it. Now, it is called Tea Talks with Duchess and Sarah. To me, that is a little bit of a mouthful. I don't know. I maybe rethink the name. But anyway, Tea Talks with Duchess and Sarah, obviously because they are both called Sarah. But I am going to listen to it. So in a future video, I will give my opinion about all of it. But I did listen to the first maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes before coming live today. The reason why I haven't listened to it is because it's only just sort of come out and I've not had time to sit and listen because it's about 43 minutes, 45 minutes. So I will listen to it, but I wanted to see the first 3 to 5 minutes to kind of see what the style is. And it is very conversational, it is very chatty. You definitely get the personality of Sarah coming through. I think the other Sarah is there to kind of add some structure and maybe sort of keep things on track. I think that's probably why Sarah is doing it with somebody else. A little bit in a similar kind of vein as she collaborates with an author to create her book series. So apparently no subject is off limits. I am sure there might be 1 or 2 subjects that Sarah may want to kind of swiftly evade slightly or not talk about, but apparently things are open. And I am reading an article that I think they picked up the main thing that was discussed in this podcast, which is she was asked, does she have a boyfriend? Now, of course, the relationship between ex-husband Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and Sarah has been rumoured to be sort of, I suppose, quite a stable relationship behind the scenes, although not formally a relationship. They've obviously, holiday together, lived together, co-parented together for a very, very long time. So, possibly even have had some kind of open relationships. I don't know. I don't know the full extent of their relationship. But she did say that she's very shy. And she says that no, she doesn't have a boyfriend. So, is it one of those weird things where she considers Andrew sort of not to be a boyfriend because they have been married? So is it a very Fergie typical way of sort of answering a question, but also slightly sidestepping the whole issue? I'm not entirely sure, but she says she hasn't got a boyfriend. Well, no, because you've got an ex-husband. So maybe that explains that answer. Or it could just mean she is not in a relationship at all. Let's face it. Let's be honest. And then she was asked if she would like one. And she said yes. Now, of course, I didn't get to that bit, so I don't know the whole context and the conversational style. Was it laughing and joking at the time? I will find that out when I do eventually listen to the podcast. But the fact that she would like one, does that mean that she would like one to be public with? Would you like to go public with Prince Andrew back in terms of relationship? Or is it just that she doesn't have a relationship and that she would like to have one with someone else? We really don't know. And I don't think it was elaborated on or pushed any further because there is nothing else in the article about it. Um, so I am obviously going to be sharing pictures of them recording this. Um, but no, I think her relationship with Prince Andrew is very complicated. I think it might be quite simple to them because they know what it is. They know what they do, what they don't do, what the boundaries are, what sort of freedoms they give each other. Is it an open relationship? Is it a closed relationship, but it's just kept low key? Is it kept low key so that Sarah can do these projects to earn some money independently? There's a whole load of questions that if I was on this podcast that I would like to ask. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to end this little segment talking about this with saying that I am going to go off to listen to the podcast and I will let you know what I think about it. And also, please let me know your thoughts and comments about what you think the nature of Sarah and Andrew's relationship truly is. My next story is about the Princess of Wales and her potential association through a charity that she's patron of. And of course, I'm talking about Action for Children. Um, and yeah, I'm just going to start reading the article and then we'll sort of discuss it because it is one that I think I will preface this part of the video with saying we are looking at morals and we are looking at moral values and we are looking at, I suppose, cancel culture. So we'll get to all of that in a moment. And also, we're talking about compassion for other people involved as well. So, news broke that a convicted murderer boss of a charity, and of course, the Princess of Wales is patron, deeply regrets the past killing of a father to be. So, William and Catherine were unaware that a now 60-year-old's criminal past when they met him at a primary school last year, and they have been photographed together. But the palace was informed of his criminal past after he took up the £154,000 a year chief executive job in March. That seems a lot of money for a charity director, doesn't it? You'd think that the majority of charity money would go to the charity. Anyway, so at the time of the meeting, as I've said, the royal couple were unaware of the past, and that raises questions in itself as to why they were not made aware. I mean, I know that from my previous jobs, you have to have enhanced DBS checks to see what if you have any criminal past. And if you do, for a lot of roles and jobs in the United Kingdom, you probably wouldn't be taken on if something was found. Or if it was, it would be looked into a lot further. Um, so, Action for Children said it informed the palace about Carberry's murder conviction when he took up the job as chief executive in March. So, this was after William and Catherine were photographed with him. He also has a role on the Serious and Organised Crime Task Force in his native Scotland, with responsibility for helping steer children away from crime. So it seems to me like he is a person that has obviously committed a heinous crime, but has turned his life around and is now trying to help young people not go down the same route that he went down. So the actual crime was back in 1979 when he was 16. So we're talking about a very, very young person at the time. And apparently he attacked a 21-year-old 5 times with a knife and wounded another passenger. According to court reports at the time, he had been part of Glasgow's Tough Govan team, a gang, travelling to London for a Scotland football match against England, and had been drinking beer and vodka, so under the influence. He was later arrested and subsequently found guilty at a Crown Court aged 17. And the headline for the paper at the time was "Terror on the Tartan Express." Reportedly showing little emotion, Carberry was given a sentence at Her Majesty's pleasure, meaning he would be locked up until it was considered safe to release him. After serving time in youth custody and partly adult prison, Carberry was released in 1985 and went on to get a job as a social worker. So it seems like he immediately tried to turn his life around. He joined Action for Children nearly 3 decades ago and was its Scottish boss when he met William and Catherine in May of last year. In a statement for the charity's chair of trustees, said the trustees of Action for Children who appointed Paul Carberry as CEO did so in the full knowledge of his past, so he did declare it to them, which is a matter of public record and has previously been reported in the press. So they're saying that he was open with them. Paul deeply regrets and is sorry for what he did when he was 16. He has told us not a day goes by when he doesn't think about the devastating and long-lasting impact his actions have had on the victims and their families. So at least he's recognising and remorseful for what he did. He was tried when he was 17 years old, convicted and served 5.5 years, firstly at a young offenders and then adult prison. He says his time inside was a turning point, and although he can't change what he did, he was determined to dedicate his life and his rehabilitation to help vulnerable young people. He says he never hid his past. Through his career, Paul has helped support thousands of children and young people, including those who have been involved in crime, helping many find jobs, avoid criminal exploitation, and reach their full potential. Until he took on the CEO position, he held a number of roles across crime and youth justice and has been a leading voice in this area. We understand all agencies in Scotland were aware of his past. Kensington Palace have been contacted for comment. So I think from that, what we can kind of glean is that everything has been done above board. And although this Paul Carberry has had, a very terrible past when he was younger, it does seem like he has tried to turn something terrible into something positive, and that William and Catherine were unaware of this at the time of being photographed with him. And I do realise that everything is about optics. I think maybe it raises questions as to what Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, the royal family in general do about having their photographs taken with people. Should there be enhanced DBS checks done as part of the preliminaries of setting up these royal engagements? Should everybody who come in contact with or photographed with William and Catherine, the King and Queen, Princess Anne, all the other working royals, actually be back checked? I mean, that involves a lot of work. Meticulous planning would have to be involved to actually do that. But I think the article that I've just read kind of does sum everything up quite nicely and kind of rounds everything up. So please let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Next, we go back to Prince Harry. Now, we do know that in the US, the Heritage Foundation is trying to discover if the revelations in Harry's memoir Spare was documented in his visa application. So there's been lots of talk about Harry's visa, but it has gone to that a federal judge will hear an appeal from a conservative think tank to unseal Prince Harry's US immigration records following revelations in his book that he took drugs. And of course, this is because Harry is very high profile. And I suppose what they're trying to do is to determine whether or not any special favours have been given to Harry above other individuals. So, Niall Gardner of the Heritage Foundation tweeted on Tuesday, a hearing on his organisation's suit will be heard on the 6th of June, so not long to go. He wrote that Prince Harry's immigration records case will be held in Washington, D.C. federal court in front of a US federal judge. He also announced the proceedings will be open to the press. Past drug use can be grounds to deny a visa application for the US. It can be, but it doesn't always mean that it has been. Special dispensations can be given depending upon your circumstances. So even if, I suppose, this finds out that Harry didn't put it on his visa application form, but maybe he told them informally, I really don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. So the Heritage Foundation is trying to discover if the revelations in Harry's memoir were documented. In other words, did he actually disclose that information? In the book, of course, it was revealed that Harry had taken cocaine, smoked marijuana, and tried magic mushrooms. It comes as an ongoing High Court trial involving the Duke of. I mean, he's in many high-profile court cases, including that against the Mirror Group, that for his security. I imagine he's a little bit sick and tired of court cases, or maybe not. So, with regards to the immigration, we're going to have to wait and see. It just means that we will know whether or not he's had any favourable treatment above other individuals, which of course could lead to further questions and maybe potentially even a reassessment of his visa application. I don't know, because also don't forget he is now, of course, well, he was when he made the application originally, he is married to a US citizen by birth. So it is complicated, and we'll have to wait and see how this unfolds, but it will be telling if he lied about declaring everything on his US visa application. So all eyes will be on June the 6th, of which I do believe he will be in the UK for his own some sort of legal case. I think it's the one regarding his security, possibly, or is it the one about the Mirror Group? Oh, it's all getting into a blur, my loves. But anyway, I think he'll be in the UK at the time, and he will be giving evidence. Oh, it is about the Mirror Group. So, yeah, basically, this will be the first occasion that a royal has given evidence, and he will not have been given the questions in advance. He will, he will have to do some very quick thinking on his feet, and wishy-washy words, word salads, all the rest of it is not going to cut it when it comes to a judge. Uh, and anybody who works in the legal profession, they are very, very astute. They won't take wishy-washy answers. They will want, you know, pure factual statements coming from Harry, and they will want, if he's saying something, they will want it to be able to be backed up by evidence. So anything wishy-washy is not going to cut it when it comes to a formal court of law. So that will be very, very interesting as well. And again, these are things that Harry and Meghan are bringing upon themselves. As we know, William settled his case privately to avoid this sort of scrutiny and level of detail. So, which works in a royal's favour. We breathe a sigh of relief, and we breathe a sigh of relief and wait in anticipation. Okay, so my next story is one that concludes a little bit of a round of speculation over whether or who would attend the Jordanian royal family wedding between Crown Prince Hussein and now I think it's Rajwa Al Saif. I hope I've said that name correctly. If I haven't, I do apologise. But we finally got our answer. It was, of course, the Prince and Princess of Wales, as many, many people thought it would be. Now, obviously, because of the time difference, we haven't got really any amazing photos to show, but there is a photo of them. I think they're arriving at a 5-star luxury hotel in Amman. of course, ahead of the royal wedding, which should be taking place today, but I'm not sure of the time difference. So probably in the next video, I will be talking all about what William and Catherine were wearing to the wedding, and probably more so Catherine, to be quite honest. But it will be very, very interesting. And obviously, people were speculating who would go. We didn't think that the king and queen would be going. Obviously, the king has duties back home here in the United Kingdom. But also, Camilla is not really a fan of overseas travel and particularly the heat. So unless she really has to go somewhere like on a foreign tour, the likelihood is that she's probably going to want to stay behind. William and Catherine, of course, are the younger generation. They are taking up a lot of slack, and there is lots of spare work going on because of the reduced royal family. So many people thought and speculated that they would be going. Turns out they have. And it's looking likely to be a very, very lavish wedding ceremony. So as soon as we know any information about it, as soon as I have any photos, I will make another video where we discuss everything that transpired at this wedding. So that concludes today's video. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit that bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, to you all, and goodbye.